So, at Georgia Power, if you ever want to look at solar and see what solar looks like in the state of Georgia, we actually have solar arrays on top of our building at 241 downtown right off I-75. So if you look at the building, we have a building right in front. We have all these different arrays, and some are facing southwest, some are facing south, and they're made out of different materials. Some are microcrystalline, some are larger, bigger crystals. Bigger crystals means better efficiency, by the way, microcrystals versus larger crystals. So we are testing. We're one of the few investor utilities that does our own research. We also partner with EPRI, which is the Energy, just went brain dead, Energy Research Institute out of North Carolina. I'm sure you've been able to tell me that. They're in Asheville, right? So, but we partner with them to do constant research because we wanted to see what it looks like. This is from March of 2014, and as you'll notice, this is a typical month. What can we see from this day? All right, so this is the typical peak demand. This chart is our peak usage. So our usage kicks up in the morning, it's peak at the middle of the day. And in the state of Georgia, we have a large peak in the afternoon, especially in the summertime, peak use. We get home from work, we want our house cool, we want to cook. So that's when we use a large majority of our energy. However, you'll notice that we normally peak solar right in the middle of the day, but on this day it was very cloudy. Because you can see that this is the only amount we produce. Jump down to the 8th, what can you tell? There's very little cloud activity. And so this is a typical month, and this is online. You can actually pull it up, Georgia Power Solar website, real easy to navigate to, and you can look at how much is being generated right now if you wanted to. And so why are we doing this research? Because solar panels are not 100% efficient. And why do I say that? Well, if you look at the efficiency and the way that we calculate the amount of energy from solar panels, basically, for easy math, you take the size of the farm, if you will, solar farm, and you know that it's going to produce a certain megawatt. So let's say 1 megawatt for simplicity's sake. And so we take 1 megawatt, if it's 24 hours a day, the sun was shining, we would produce 24 hours times 1 megawatt, so we would produce 24 megawatt hours, theoretically, in a day. However, we don't get 24 hours of sunlight. So basically, we take the 1 megawatt, we multiply it times the number of hours in a year, and then we multiply that times 0.25 or 25%. Because most of the time, we're only getting 25% efficiency out of the solar farm. I hope I didn't lose you there. I'm trying to be a good physics teacher. So that's why we're doing the research. How can we make it better? What works better in the Southeast? Are the ones that track the sun better? Are the stationary ones that better? What is better for Georgia Power? So our growing capacity, our portfolio. We started in 2003. We're regulated by the Public Service Commission, our public utility. And in 2003, they allowed us to start the green energy program where you could buy in and say, I want to buy green energy. A lot of your concerts, a lot of your venues, the Hawks, the Braves, a lot of venues said, we want 100% renewable energy. Well, guess what they did? They paid for us to go out and buy renewable energy. So when you go to a venue and they say we're 100% renewable, they're not getting 100% renewable energy to provide power to that venue. What they're saying is, I'm buying the offset so that Georgia Power can buy that amount of electricity while I'm having my meeting. So we started that, and then we started a biomass in 2010. We were going to retrofit and change some of our coal plants to biomass facilities. Georgia's very good for biomass, or we thought for a while there, because we have lots of tree scraps from our forest industry. But the problem is with that is we've gotten competitive now, and there's a few things, but basically the competitive part of it is the EPA, a biomass facility is almost the same as a coal-fired plant. So the benefits there are not that good for us. But also, we found out in Georgia that in Europe, they love to buy wood pellets to burn. And they use a lot of wood pellets in their biomass facilities. If you didn't know, Europe, Northern Europe especially, has closed a lot of their coal facilities. And so when they close them, they are now burning biomass, and a lot of those pellets are made in southeast Georgia and shipped overseas. So, competition. But we did have this amount. And then we started our large-scale solar. In 2011, the Public Service Commission said, hey, we want you to start solar. So as a business and we're regulated, we said, okay, we'll start solar. And then we have what is called our ASI, which is Advanced Solar Initiative. Basically what we did on our first part is we said we're going to have a guaranteed rate of return for a 20-year contract. You build it, we put in a lottery, you pulled your name out, you were given a specific price per kilowatt hour. I think it was around 13 cents for a 30-year contract. People jumped all over it. Matter of fact, we had so many people, we realized that the contract was too good. Right? Because here's the deal. If you're Georgia, how many of you are Georgia Power customers? Nobody in here? Okay? So if you guys are paying us a rate for your energy, our part of the responsibility is to keep the rate as low as possible for you guys. So when we buy solar, we don't want to pay a premium for solar. We want to pay the cheapest we can get for our customers. We want to be renewable, but we also want to keep those rates low. So what we did after that is realize on our next offering that we did a competitive bid. And so all of our new solar is competitive bid. So anybody who wants to sell us solar actually submits a bid as what the price they would take for the solar. And it's good to say that that price has come way down, and we're buying solar as cheap as 7.5 cents. Most of our contracts now are around 10.5 cents per kilowatt hour is what we're paying our different contracts. And then finally, you see up at the top, and I'll talk about Blue Canyon in a second, you'll see our military projects. Actually, 3 of our bases, if you didn't know, the Department of Energy said that military bases, you've got to become energy independent. So what did they do? They said, oh, let's build solar arrays. So we are actually building 30 megawatt solar installations on 3 of the bases here in Georgia. We're doing some others in the southeast and Mississippi. And so that's part of that military project. We call it the 3x30 or 90 megawatts of solar. The good news is for the base, they're giving us the land to put the solar on, we're getting the energy, but for the base, they're in times of war or in times of desperate need, guess what they get to do? They commandeer it. Basically agreement, they said, hey, we need the energy, we're disconnected from the grid, we've got energy independence in the ultimate time of need, which would be a warlike scenario. Let's hope we don't do it. And then, go ahead and turn. The Blue Canyon we'll talk about, but here's the energy offsets. This is just telling you all the picture of the slide before where it went to. So the energy offset, that's where the customer bought or purchased part of the green energy. Qualifying facility, these are biomass facilities, methane facilities, different places. They're not necessarily solar, but they're facilities that we're buying different types of fuel from. They also can be a customer that has tires and they want to burn them to make their own electricity, to make steam, to drive their industrial process. When they make additional electricity, they sell it back to us. So a lot of the plants do that, especially your paper plants. So other renewables for solar, or for Georgia Power. We just purchased in Oklahoma a little while back. It actually comes online this year, or 2016, 250 megawatts of wind power. And that's pretty substantial. By the way, why don't we have wind here in Georgia? Wind power. I'm asking the questions. I'm the teacher. I'm throwing the questions out.
There's no wind.
We don't have sustainable winds. It takes, on average, for them to be productive, or their top efficiency, 20 mile per hour sustainable winds. Now guys, if we have 20 mile an hour sustainable winds, my hair gets blown out of place. But you understand, rarely do we have 20 mile an hour sustainable winds here in the southeast. There are some places, Asheville, North Carolina, and some other places. Asheville keeps coming up. But there are some places that they do have sustainable winds, and we're doing more research. However, we are not opposed to it. We're actually doing research on the coast right now to see if there's viability on the coast. And then biomass. We do have some biomass facilities where we actually are burning different switchgrass or tree plants. So this is the Blue Canyon wind out in Oklahoma. Just for scale's sake, that's what I wanted to show you guys, how large these facilities are. If you've never seen one, these are people standing on top of this turbine. I hope they get paid well. But on average, 1 megawatt, so each of these are probably 1 to 1.5 megawatts, million-watt production. Takes about 5 to 7 acres of land. And that's one of the big issues, is how much land, and what are we doing to the terrain, and what are we doing to the wildlife, and what are we doing to the habitat. See, nothing's free. There's a trade-off. And so that's one of the issues that people have. Well, if you're out in the desert where nothing is, what are you affecting? Well, you're not affecting human life, but what other wildlife or things can you do affect? So that's some of the trade-off. But this is part of the Blue Canyon Wind. Go ahead, I won't bore with this. Well, you can back up, I'm sorry. So what is in store for 2016? Actually, in 2016, we've just put out that we're going to buy another 100 megawatts of solar. And the good news is it's a fixed price for a 25, or actually from about a 20 to a 35-year contract. So for us as customers, it's great news because we're buying it at about, on average, about 10.5 cents per kilowatt hour, which is good news for us. And then the green energy program, the way it is, we had very little participation. People said they want to be green and want to make a difference. But we had very little participation in the green energy program. So we talked to the PSC, and they're going to allow us to redesign that program, hopefully, for the future. And then finally, we had a residential rooftop solar program. You may have heard that there was legislation passed that allowed people to lease solar on their roofs. And so we were part of that legislation. People said, well, why would Georgia Power be involved in the legislation? Well, it comes back to the one, reliability. And there's a lot of other technical issues. I'd love to talk with you offline to educate you, but here's one of the largest ones. If you have solar on your roof, and when we charge you 14 cents per kilowatt hour, basically, on an average residential customer, 14 cents per kilowatt hour if you do it 30 years, that includes the transmission cost, the line cost, and everything. And also the generation. 55% of it comes from generation. That's your cost. The rest comes coming through transmission lines, distribution lines, upkeep, capital maintenance, and all that stuff. But when you, as a solar customer, one of the biggest concerns, and we've seen across the nation, is that when you install it, you're using less electricity, so you're basically using the utility as your backup emergency, but you're not paying that full price that all your other customers do. So one of the biggest concerns, if you're well off enough to put solar on your roof, it's the lower income people who end up paying higher rates because somebody has to pay for that maintenance and upkeep. And so there's an equitable balance, and so that's why we were involved in the legislation a little bit to help say, hey, we got to keep this in check, because if we allow all the upper class, if you will, because that's normally who puts on the solar, to take advantage of this, what is that going to do to our lower income customers? And in the Southeast, 40%, or actually about 45% of our customers' family income does not exceed $40,000 a year. And that's in the Southern Company footprint. So you can see why we want to keep those rates marginal. And you can go, if you want to find out if solar's right for you, we created a website. It's a step-by-step. You can start. It will go through the size of your home, ask you questions, why do you want to do it? And if it's right for you, you can actually set up a one-on-one call with two people, Audrey or Bert, they're good friends of mine, and they will call you and walk you through the process to find out if that is specifically great for you. So what do I do? A little bit back up. That's an education piece. I actually have a team. Georgia Power, part of our strategy is called Power Ed. Power Ed means that we want to educate the public and support public education. And we do that in two ways. We engage students, and then we provide resources for educators. And so part of my team is called Learning Power, and we actually have 11 teachers throughout all of our regions that go out into the state to teach energy efficiency and to bring STEM awareness to students pre-K through 12. Because if you want to change a society, you don't start when people are adults. Part of the social aspect of our company is we want to be citizens where we serve. We live in the state. I live here. I want to be viable for my kids and my grandkids. So part of that is our public education, and that's why we're involved. So what do we do? Another part of it, we're here to support education. We want to give better outcomes. If the workforce erodes in the state, industry erodes, if industry erodes, we don't have big business bringing in economic jobs, and if big business doesn't come in, we can't get tire manufacturers to come in and build facilities. We lose revenue because we're not making customers. So that's one of the things. And then we wanted to focus on STEM, to talk about awareness and careers. You'd be surprised the shortage of STEM careers in the United States, or STEM qualified people for STEM careers. And why? Because the baby boomer generation has a lot of engineers, and they're retiring at massive rates. And we've got to have qualified people to fill those jobs. So, and then that's where we come in to teach standards-based, 8th grade, transformation of energy. So our whole business is based on transforming energy from a type of one resource to electricity. So we teach practical, hands-on lessons of why in our business of make, move, and sell energy is important to students. And then finally, we get feedback in our learning power. We want stakeholders. We want to make sure we're making a difference across the state. We want students and teachers to see a value from us teaching energy efficiency. And so that's why we returned to the classroom in 2011. Since 2011, we've been in over 12,000 classrooms, and 315,000 students have taken part in one of our classes. And so just a brief overview, we actually have, when we have a new book coming out, we've written children's books that we give to each student when we go into their class. We want them to take them home and read their parents. And they have different messages, but they're all related around their standards of energy and energy efficiency. And then 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade. 3rd grade, we teach heat transfer. 4th grade, we teach applied mathematics. Why is it important? Does it really matter if I swap out LEDs for incandescent light bulbs? What is the cost savings? 5th grade, we do simple circuits, open and closed circuits, and teach them electricity. And then we develop innovation and invention, which is one of my favorite lessons. The difference between innovation and invention. We invented, Alexander Graham Bell, if you will, invented the telephone. Apple has innovated it to what we have today. So, and these are various lessons, like I said, renewables and non-renewables, and then we have energy transformation. And then in high school, we actually have written a fission and fusion because it's big in the state. We actually are building 2 new nuclear reactors, if you didn't realize. And then we actually have a home as a system where we teach students to go evaluate their own home usage and their footprint. And then finally, we are writing a new one. And I was talking to Tiffany about that earlier. We're writing an economics lesson for our students to realize the economic impact, either from a macro, micro, or personal budget finance standpoint of view, and why it makes a difference. So, part of it I said we survey. So we survey every teacher we go in. We don't get a response from every, but we get about 50% response rate. 98% say that we're helping them teach science and math. 93% said it improved the students' commitment. And if students are improved commitment when they come home, most people have that conversation at home with their parents, and they make a change. And then finally, the teachers themselves said beforehand they were about 50% informed, and afterwards they were about 98% felt that they had an increased knowledge of energy efficiency. So thank you for letting me come and talk about what we're doing at Georgia Power and Southern. And I will turn it over because I think we're going to have a whole panel.
Yes. Please, all the judges, all the speakers, come back to the panel. And open the floor. Everyone can ask a question. You want to mention the question you want to address to one of the speakers. I have so many.
Put on the video.
I don't know what to do.
Put on video.
Joseph, you got one.
One.
Okay.
I'll put one.
Do you have any questions? Yes.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. Can I?
Sure.
Okay. It's related. It's very informative and I learned much from you. But you have special programs, education programs for the adults, not only kids. And
let me ask one at a time because my memory I'll forget. So basically right now for adults, we do not. Our program right now is for public schools. However, and I was sharing earlier, a lot of you, if you will go to Georgia Power's website, it'll say community or residential. If you click on residential, we talk about the education. There's a lot of videos that talk about specific education for products and different vendors and what heat pumps and insulation and sealing ducts. So there's a lot of that education out there, but we don't specifically go. Now, we do have training seminars for a lot of vendors. So if you are in a large group like this and want to learn about commercial energy efficiency and our rebate programs and how to work with lighting vendors and retrofits, how you can actually benefit if you're a small business. You know, if I go out and change my incandescents or my T12, which are the larger lamps, down to T4s or to those, the rebates and how it can actually help you, and we actually do cost analysis. So we do we're starting to educate more of our vendors in those products because, especially in the new housing market, because most of them did not understand until we started educating the realtors and everything the benefits of building energy efficient homes. And not only that, we're educating bankers to why you should loan people more money if they're buying a house that is energy efficient.
Is this a good question?
That's a great question.
I have
Just got another one.
Oh, just a way that we see other people have the question. Yes.